We're in year 6 of this show, and I feel like every day after an election, I come on here and talk about losing and losers. And, maybe I'm just one big loser. Maybe it's me. I don't know. I can't figure out what other conclusion to come to as we kick it off on a Wednesday post-election day morning here on KCMO. But there were losses. If you're a Republican across most of Johnson County, in city council races, on school board races, in mayoral races, a lot of losing was getting done. Johnson County Democrats were doing a lot of winning last night. That's the reality. In many races. And, we're not going to go through each of them, but you can look at the election results on one of your local news sites and see what exactly happened in your backyard. But just know, for the most part, unless you're in a couple of pockets that I'll get to here shortly, you probably lost. I'm just saying that if you're a Republican voter, by the way, you probably lost. There was a tremendous amount of losing across the region last night, specifically in Johnson County. And, it's not shocking. I was told this was a highly possible outcome in the last few weeks, and that it's not like I'm sitting here today and saying, oh, my goodness, I can't believe this. I'm not shocked by it, but you can still be disappointed because, as we've talked about for the last couple of weeks, as these local elections approached, these are the people that impact your lives every single day. You don't know it. You don't know who they are. You can't pick them out of a lineup if they were standing right in front of you. But they're the people who impact, first off, what your taxes are going to be, your property taxes, your sales taxes, things like that, right? They're the people who impact your schools, what's going on in your kids' classrooms. That's who these people are. I'm not saying the stuff in D.C. isn't important. It obviously is in different ways. But these matter just as much. And we don't have final turnout numbers. I'll try to get my hands on those as soon as we have them. But we knew it was going to be a low-ish turnout across the county, and it was about what we expected. But once again, there's going to be a lot of people complaining about the outcomes in a couple of years who are going to say, I can't believe this is happening in Overland Park, Olathe, Shawnee, Lenexa. Well, where were you on November 6th of 2023? That's what I would ask anybody who is going to pose that kind of a question. Now, you did see a couple of victories here in pockets across the region. Number one was in Prairie Village. Prairie Village has the blueprint model for how you win back some of these city council seats. They had a very good night. They won the majority of their races. And they won it with people who made it about incredibly local issues, right? Prairie Village has been a very unique story to follow over the last year and a half or so because the city council had pushed for rezoning and, all these different styles of housing that, frankly, took away from exactly what Prairie Village was and is. And Prairie Village folks, on a very grassroots level, did an incredible job organizing, finding very good candidates, making it issue specific. Now, people tried to brand these folks as like radical right-wingers, but it wasn't a political thing. It wasn't a left-right thing. It was, hey, do you want Prairie Village to remain what Prairie Village has been and what has made it an incredibly desirable community? Or do you want to start, rezoning every street corner as the city council sees fit? Multifamily, affordable, whatever you want to call it. And the answer was no. So the Prairie Village City Council is going to be turning over for the better. That's a big win from last night, and there are lessons to be learned from that, by the way, in Prairie Village. If you focus on these local issues, you have a good grassroots campaign, and it's a little bit easier, admittedly, in a place like Prairie Village that is geographically small, compared to, say, an Overland Park or Olathe or something like that. It's easier to do, I admit, in Prairie Village. But that being said, it still shows you a way forward and a way to win. You take all the national crap and everything else, left, right, out of it, and you focus on that issue that matters to your constituents. And you saw it win last night in Prairie Village. So that was incredibly encouraging. Who would have thought? We're talking about, of all the places in Johnson County, right? Of all the places, the biggest success story for those in favor of freedom and liberty is Prairie freaking Village. God bless them. What a story, huh? What a comeback story that is. And then the other big success story, as John noted in the top of the hour news, was the fact that the no vote won on question 1 in Jackson County. And that was the question that we spent a lot of time yesterday kind of mocking. It was 8 lines long, and the question read as follows. Shall Jackson County impose a local use tax for the purpose of financing road and bridge construction projects within the county? Sounds good so far, right? Including projects within the corporate limits of cities within the county for financial assistance to homeless persons and persons at risk of becoming homeless, and for renovations and repairs to the Jackson County Courthouse and all these different courthouse repairs. It's like, wait, where did the line about the homeless people fit into this? It was a local use tax for financing roads and bridge construction projects and somehow turned into helping homeless people and people at risk of becoming homeless. How did we get there? Well, the no vote on that won, and it won very handily. Here we go. Yeah. 60% to 40% is how that went down. That was a very big win for the no side last night. So, you know what? People are going to be like, yeah, I'm good to finance some roads and bridges. But then you put in line about homeless people and people at risk of becoming homeless. Heck, in this economy, we're all at risk of becoming homeless, right? I mean, my goodness. So that one went down in flames by 20 points.
Might I interject? I was interested in the spin on different stations on how that went down. We rejected a homeless tax. We rejected an online tax. Of course, nowhere in there did it mention that it was online tax. I guess we kind of knew that, right? We did mention that here on the air, right? So some people knew that.
So people framed it as rejecting a homeless tax?
Kind of the way I've seen here. And so no one is using the exact wording of the question, so it was interesting that you went ahead and read it. And I was going to ask you if you'd saved that from the other day.
Got it right here in front of me.
Yeah.
I ran
because you won't probably find the exact question again now to read it for yourself to reframe it.
Jackson Countyans hate the homeless. That's going to be the headline.
Kind of sort of like that.
As if we don't already have millions of dollars set aside for homeless issues and causes and things like that.
Well, and the other thing is another bridge road thing has gone down in flames in Missouri, and we all look kind of like idiots from a surface view. But when you get into it.
Get into the details of it and what it actually was, for. So, you know what? How about you write a damn question that actually gives money to roads and bridges instead of writing a question that you claim is for roads and bridges, and then in the middle of the question it says it's for homeless people. That's not that difficult. 913-408-7957. So the two big wins last night, one on either side of our state line. Prairie Village coming to its senses on the rezoning craziness, and the majority of those candidates coming out on top. And then, on top of that, you've got the win on the Jackson County side of the state line, saying, no, we're not just going to keep putting in taxes that you claim are going to be for roads and bridges when you put stuff in there about homeless people. Sorry. I'm willing to be generous, but in this economy, not so much. Because we're all at risk of becoming homeless. I'll tell you that right now.
No kidding.
But the losses keep stacking up locally. That's unfortunately the headline takeaway. Democrats doing very well in Johnson County. And I don't know how you slow that train down. 913-408-7957. As we get it rolling on a post-election day Wednesday morning, Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7. 621 on a post-election day Wednesday morning. Great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio as we look at some of these local elections. Now, there were some wins also in places like Bonner Springs. You had victories out there in some of your school board races, so I don't want to forget about that. Also, GOP candidates won in some of the KCK seats. So, listen, there were some victories scattered across the region. There's no doubt about that. But specifically in Johnson County, obviously one of the hubs here of the region, you saw a very good night for Democrats on the local level. City councils, school boards, mayoral races. There's no doubt they had themselves a very good night. Jonathan's on KCMO kicking it off on a Wednesday. Hey, Jonathan, good morning.
How you doing, Pete?
I'm doing well, man. What's happening?
So there's a political prognosticator that I fairly regularly listen to, a conservative one. And, he analyzes, trends in politics and all that. And he was looking at states in one of his podcasts, and he was saying, what he predicts they will do in the future. And he thinks that Kansas is going to become a purple state in 10 to 20 years. And he says the reason why is because of Johnson County. It's growing, and while it's growing, it's becoming more liberal, and it used to be a conservative stronghold. And then you look at other counties like Riley County, which flipped Biden, and I don't know that they ever elected a Democrat at any time since the Civil War. And you look at others like suburban and college counties like that, and you're like, yeah, Kansas is moving to the left while Missouri moves to the right. It's weird. I don't know that you ever could have predicted that decades ago, but that's the way we're going. And I guess conservatives, the Republicans, they need to wake up and, pay attention to these states, because they can't just take them for granted. Otherwise, we did that with Georgia and Arizona. How's that working out?
Yeah, that is, Jonathan, great way to kick it off. You bring up some outstanding points, and you're right. Riley County, of course, is where Manhattan is, where K-State is. So, that was an interesting trend from the last cycle. And that doesn't surprise me. Now, here's what's interesting about Kansas, though. And there are a handful of states like this as well. But Kansas overwhelmingly votes Republican for president and for U.S. Senate. But then, we've elected Laura Kelly twice. And you're right when you talk about the trends. And this is true in many states, but you're seeing it here in Kansas, and it's happening faster here in Kansas because Kansas is a lower population state at 3 million people. Johnson County is growing so rapidly. And then you have the rural areas that are going to be more red shrinking, right? I mean, that's happening all over America as well. Those are American trends, not just Kansas trends. But it's easier to make an impact in a state like Kansas if Johnson County continues to blow up while these rural places continue to shrink. So that wouldn't shock me one bit. Because eventually, by the way, as the polarization continues in politics, the ticket splitters, the people who are willing to vote Republican for a U.S. senator like, say, Roger Marshall, but then are going to vote for a Laura Kelly for governor, that's eventually going to go by the wayside. And people are going to just be voting straight Democratic or straight Republican on their tickets. That's how this is going to go. So that doesn't surprise me one bit that whoever you were listening to, Jonathan, made that point. And I agree with that point. And that's why, by the way, these local elections yesterday matter so much when it comes to how you grow Johnson County. It's why Prairie Village remains a success story amongst the losses in Olathe and Overland Park and other places like that. Because a lot of the people who won yesterday in Overland Park, who won in Olathe, that you thought you saw a lot of apartment complexes in some of these communities over the last few years, you just wait, baby. This thing's going to go on steroids here. It is going to go into overdrive. When you talk about the apartment development complex that continues to overrun these city councils in Johnson County. And Democrats do it because they think they're getting voters in here. They think density wins them voters. And then Republicans are going along with it, too many of them, because they're kind of the attitude, well, it's not my land. It's not my place to tell somebody what to do with their own land. So therefore, I'm just going to go ahead and let it be rezoned and help out the developer. That's what I'm going to do. No. That's not how this works. That's not what these communities were intended to be. I want home ownership, by the way, for everybody. I'd be fine with starter homes in Overland Park, Olathe, all over Johnson County. But doing rentals is not the way of the future if you want to maintain these communities in what has made them successful. Let's go to Mike in Kansas City. Hello, Mike. Good morning. What's up?
Yeah, real quick. Republican Party in Johnson County blew it yesterday. I don't know how many contacts from Democrats, from progressive groups, open, with the school board and Olathe and stuff. Not a single contact from a Republican, nothing. Even going online, it was difficult to find a voting guide on there. I ended up going and getting the Democrat Party voting guide and voting opposite whoever they were recommending. This is a problem. The reason Johnson County lost yesterday was because the Republican Party thinks it's 1990 instead of 2023. Need to get some fresh young blood in there, some of the newer people that are coming in, and need to sit there and modernize the party, especially when it comes to the internet and things like that.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. They just turned over their leadership here in the last year or so. So they've got new blood in there.
They're not doing any good. And as far as Laura Kelly's concerned, Gomer Pyle got Laura Kelly elected. If it wasn't for Gomer Pyle, we would have a Republican governor.
Yeah.
That was, typical Democrat subterfuge.
Yeah.
So that's not really a good example to use of why Kansas is going blue. But, it's horrible. Not a single contact from a Republican in this whole election cycle.
Here's thank you, Mike. Here's what I'll put a bow on that with, because I know a lot of people are going to be upset at local party officials, and I've been critical of them in the past at various times. I heard a lot from these people in text message form, door knocking. I heard they were doing good work on the ground. That's what I heard, and I experienced a little bit of that. But Democrats do a much better job in these local elections, it seems like, time and time again. 913-408-7957. We'll get to more of your reaction on a post-election day Wednesday morning, and some of the national trends as well coming up on KCMO. Can I give you a little good tidbit here as we keep it rolling in the 6 o'clock hour? I needed something to make me feel better about things right now, as I know many of you do, and this came on the text line. 913-408-7957. Pete, this is Karen in Prairie Village, the real Karen. We went to Manhattan yesterday, and 95.7 FM comes in loud and clear all the way out to Manhattan. A little bit less down in town, but tops of the Flint Hills, yes. I love hearing that. Woo! And I made that drive as well many times, and I did notice that with 95.7 before we got control of this signal. And it's one of the many reasons I thought it would be a great stick for us to have here on KCMO Talk Radio. So welcome in post-election day Wednesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Of course, yesterday, if you want the headline story, Johnson County Democrats did very well in their local races, city councils, Overland Park, Olathe, up and down the board. Johnson County Democrats had a very good night. Even the Johnson County Community College races all went to the Democrat-endorsed candidates. So they had themselves a bang-up night. Some of the victories, Prairie Village, big wins there. John Bacon wins re-election in Olathe. He was considered the conservative candidate of the two in that race, although I'm still skeptical of him on the apartments as a resident. So that's still up in the air, remains to be seen. But when it comes to the city council races, everything else, a lot of success for the Johnson County Democrats. That is indisputable, and it's one of the big takeaways here, certainly locally, but you're seeing a lot of trends nationally that we got to get to as well throughout the morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Bill is in Overland Park. He's on KCMO 95.7. Hey, Bill.
Morning, Pete. Thanks for taking my call. You touched on a little bit, but I'd be curious your thoughts on Mike Brown and how much of this is his fault. He got voted out of the county commissioners. He lost a statewide election. I don't think he's got the pulse of the people, and it concerns me that, he doesn't have that. I don't know if Ron or Romney McDaniel does nationally when you see what happened yesterday.
Well, yeah, Mike Brown, by the way, is the Republican chairman for the state of Kansas. I don't know. When it comes to his role, he'll say it's on the counties to do their jobs, and it's not his job as the state chair because these aren't statewide races. I'm sure that's what he would say. Would I have liked to see him on the ground a little bit more in Johnson County? Sure. More so from a funding perspective. Like Mike Brown, was not elected in large part by Johnson Countyans, right? He was considered the more conservative candidate in that race for GOP chairman. So it's not like Mike Brown himself could have done anything. Are there resources that he left on the table? I don't know. From what I understand, the fundraising's not great anyway. So, frankly, I'm just not sure what he could have done.
Well, I got an awful lot of postcards and mailers from the Democrats, nothing from the Republicans. I think he could throw some money there or I don't know. Something needs to be done.
Yeah. I mean, listen, so you got a lot of mailers from Democrats.
Yes. My city councilman, I think I got 5 or 6 from him in the last month.
Really?
And he knocked on my door.
And then you didn't hear anything from the other side?
No, I did get 2 postcards from the other side, or mailers. They're large postcards, I guess, but I never, and I'm sure I'm not home all the time. She may have knocked on my door. I wasn't home, but it just every election I get inundated from the Democrats, very little from the Republicans, and it just seems that somewhere they're dropping the ball.
And you're in Overland Park, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
It's a problem, Bill. It's a problem, man, and it's something that's got to be fixed locally. No doubt about it.
I don't know. Just something simple and bullet point, pointing out all the the taxes and where the money's going and where it's not going and what's happening. It just seems that they could do a lot better job of communicating what they can do and simplify it.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Listen, I think you're bringing up some fair points there in terms of the messaging right now is no good. Right? Now, Democrats are doing a very good job on the ground in these local races. They're turning out voters, enough voters to get it done. Republicans, they're missing the boat in a lot of ways. I mean, here we are, right, in Johnson County, where all these races were yesterday. And you have people dealing with record high property taxes. They keep going up. There's no end in sight. Property values keep going up. There's really no end in sight for that either. And you would think that there would be a tipping point where people would say, enough's enough. I'm getting screwed here. I got a high inflation environment, and now I've got my city councils, jacking up my property taxes even more, and my school boards and everything else. Apparently, there's not enough pain, right? Apparently there's not. Now, here's the other thing, though, about inflation. As we've noted many times, inflation is a regressive tax. So a lot of those folks in, let's say, the Blue Valley School District who are very comfortable, they're not really feeling the price of milk going up anyway, right? So the property taxes might go up, and it's annoying, and they'll gripe about it, but is it enough to vote for people that they normally wouldn't vote for? Especially when the Republican brand in many suburban districts has been toxic for several election cycles in a row. Around the country, by the way. That's indisputable. And that's something that's got to be figured out. And there's a national side of that conversation, and then there's a local side of that conversation. 913-408-7957, 641 on a Wednesday. Paul in Kansas City. He's next. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Pete, I'd like to contrast the Commonwealth of Virginia with Johnson County. We got wiped out of Virginia. Stratford County, which is northern Virginia, it looks like that now runs the Commonwealth, just like Johnson County now runs Kansas. And look, I'm telling you, based on the last few elections from 2020 all the way up to now, my prediction, if you ask me right now what I think next November is going to look like, it's going to look like a Biden electrical landslide, a filibuster-proof Democratic Senate, and a House that's going to have a plus 40 Democrat. If these Republicans in Ohio stunned me with the number of people that came out and voted for that Proposition 1. If they don't get their act together at the national level, you're going to see Johnson County going to look. It's in Northern Virginia is going to. That's what the country is going to look like. Stunned by the results last night. Just stunned.
On the national front there, Paul, thank you. There were certainly surprises. Democrats had a lot of success in Virginia. Of course, there was an abortion issue on the ballot in Ohio. Remember, Ohio's a red state now. Republicans, I think Trump won it by double digits each time. And there was an issue on the ballot in Ohio about making abortion a constitutional right in the state, and it passed overwhelmingly. So abortion has become a huge loser for Republicans, and that's going to be a theme that we'll get to at some point throughout the morning. Republicans have no idea how to message around abortion. They're getting their clocks cleaned. We saw what happened here in Kansas around Value Them Both last year. I think there's been 8 states who have had abortion issues on the ballot since Roe got overturned, and all 8 have gone towards the pro-abortion side. All 8 around the country. Whether it's red states or blue states, doesn't matter. I mean, abortion is a massive issue that is winning for Democrats in a big way. And, I think you got to look ahead to next year. I mean, if I was going to place a bet today on Joe Biden or Donald Trump, I know the New York Times poll that we talked a lot about the last couple of days came out and said Trump would win. But once again, 2022 was supposed to look good. And then look what happened, right? Look what happened beyond the polling. Let's go to Steven. He's in Lenexa. Go ahead, Steven. You're on KCMO.
Oh, Mungo, man, I want to cheer you up, buddy. You guys are also down this morning. We terminated Glenn Youngkin, a rhino. Tonight's the night that Nikki Haley gets rid of the anti-fracking Ron DeSantis. I mean, this is a good thing. This is
wait. It's a good thing that Republicans lost in Virginia yesterday.
It's a thinning of the herd. They were going to try and foist Glenn Youngkin upon us at the convention.
Oh no, they
most
weren't.
likely.
No,
we
they
need
weren't.
We have to selectively get these ballot issues off the states in Arizona and Florida where it could do us damage. Do it in non-cycle and in non-election cycle. We have to think strategically. We can't be dumb. We can't be. You guys are stupid because the Chamber of Commerce guys always hand it over to the rhinos in Johnson County, and don't let them run anything. They don't to get them out of the power. Take all the power away from the rhinos. That's the only way you're going.
Well, by the way, you got your big Democrat just got elected mayor of Lenexa there. I don't know if you know that. Julie Sayers, I think is her name.
I don't care.
You're right. You're right. You're too busy celebrating Democrats winning in Virginia, Steve. Way to go.
No, I want to make America number one. I don't care about rhinos running Johnson County. I want to get the number. I want to put America first. And to win, the only way to win is to think strategically and don't be.
Well, here's the thing. Republicans have lost elections now for the last 5 years, basically.
They need to lose. You need to keep losing because you're stupid. Because you have to get rid of rhinos.
What happened? Wait, hold on. Let me ask you. What about? Trump's endorsing, some of these folks. Daniel Cameron, who lost last night in Kentucky. Your girl Carrie Lake in Arizona from last year. I mean, what happened to all these people? He's supposed to be the kingmaker who's going to get all this done and bring us hope and glory and prosperity, Steve.
Well, listen, and Nikki Haley was cuddling up to the Chinese.
Hold on. Answer my question. Answer my question.
What was the question?
I understand where you're going here is you're claiming that if only we just follow the great leader, and don't get me wrong, he was a good president, Donald Trump, we'll all be hunky-dory, but every time he gets involved in a race, he loses.
Or Vivek. We need or Vivek in there.
But it doesn't back you up. The data doesn't back you up. The guys keep losing.
Okay, well, listen. All the billionaires are going to try and force Nikki Haley on us anyway.
Okay, all right. You don't even want to have the conversation.
Go full rhino.
All right. Thank you, Steve, in Lenexa. Thank you very much. He doesn't even want to converse the way I'm trying to converse.
Sometimes you don't hear from people for a while, and then when they call, you're like, oh, yeah. I remember exactly how this goes.
I mean, I love you, Steve, but geez, it's not as black. Listen, it's not as black and white as some people are going to make it out to be. What happened yesterday? I'll explain. It's not all Trump's fault. It's not all Rhino's fault. It's not. It's complex. There's a lot of gray there. And we'll dive into more of that throughout the morning on a post-Election Day Wednesday. Pete Mundo on 95.7 FM KCMO. 6:52. Welcome in on a post-Election Day Wednesday morning. Local races, of course, in the books. We'll be talking more about that throughout the morning on KCMO. And then, of course, you've got some of the national trends to follow as well. Virginia, you saw Democrats have a big night there. You saw the abortion issue have a lot of success in Ohio, the pro-abortion issue, making that part of the state constitution. You saw the Republican go down in the Kentucky governor's race, which was a bit of a surprise. So it's just been, unfortunately, another night of losses, whether it's locally in Johnson County, Kansas, or some of the national trends as well. Calvin's in Olathe. He's checking in. Hey, Calvin, good morning. What's up?
Well, normally I'm a Johnson County election worker. And what I saw this year, week-long voting. I didn't like that. Instead of a voting day, it's week-long voting. Anybody who casually feels like voting can just wander in during the course of the week and cast a ballot. But as far as Republicans, no ground game. All you see are signs out on the street. It's just clutter after a while. There's just so many signs. I had one thing put on my doorstep from somebody. Well, I didn't vote for them because I did the research. And unfortunately, the research is not even good because you go and look these people up, and they speak in flowing platitudes. They don't tell you what they're going to do. They say, we want to help the child. We want to improve the community. How? They don't tell you. Who do you vote for then? I mean, it's just like they all sound the same, the Democrats and Republicans.
Well, thank you, Calvin. Listen, I think there's two parts to your point there. The first part is early voting. That's not going away. That's here to stay. And I know you're not complaining about it per se, but to anybody complaining about it, just give up, right? It'd be like if the NFL decided that they're going to extend the quarters of football to 16 minutes. Well, that hurts my team. They changed the rules. Play by them or keep crying and losing.
We're going back to 6 preseason games.
Yeah, exactly. Like, shut up. No one cares. I'm not saying that to you, Calvin. I'm just saying to anyone who's complaining about early voting. It's not changing. So you can either take advantage of it as best as possible, get out there, do it. Now, I voted yesterday, but I thought about early voting. I really did last week. I thought about doing it, and then I just decided, I'll just vote on an election day. It just, whatever. It wasn't something I thought much about, but I did think about voting early, and then I'm like, whatever. I'll just vote on election day. It's fine. So I did it yesterday, and it was a very easy and simple process. But the early voting complaints got to stop. Got to get out there, got to vote, got to find the time, because that's not changing anytime soon, John.
I'm the old man who goes, we can all talk about all these facets, but until participation's at least 40%.
Yeah, true.
Look in the mirror.
That's a good point as well. It's not looking good when it comes to turnout. I think it's going to be somewhere around 20% if I'm looking at my numbers right, but we'll see. And then the other part of it, of course, that Calvin referenced is you don't know who's who. Well, here's the thing. You do have both county parties now, Republicans and Democrats in Johnson County in particular, basically saying, here's who the Republican is, here's who the Democrat is. So I know that when it comes to, doing research on their websites, they're all going to use this nice political speak that you will get from Washington, D.C. Folks. That's very much true. You'll get a lot of the insider folks who are just going to tell you, use these nice words. That way people can't really tell if you're a Republican or a Democrat. But then, of course, when you have the Republicans and the Democrats at the county level both getting involved and saying, here's our voter guide, well, it's going to be pretty obvious what's going on here, right? For people that are actually doing their homework. And Democrats are doing a much better job of that. That is indisputable. They are doing a much better job of that. So now you got to sit back, you got to look at the reality of the situation and say, how do you get back to winning? I understand wanting to be critical of the county party. I'm hesitant to do that in Johnson County because I have talked to a lot of people who have been part of the new regime in the county and people who, by the way, are critics of the new regime. And they did a lot on the ground at the grassroots level with what they could. So I'm not going to sit here and rag on them for that. Because the other part of it you have to admit is that even the people who have been in charge at any point over the last 5 years, they've generally produced losers as well. And I don't mean that the people that lost are losers, but you know what I mean. Losing candidates is what I'm saying. We had a lot of people on this show who are great candidates, who would have made great council members or school board members. But unfortunately, there's only so much that those individuals are going to be able to accomplish on their own. And don't discount as well a lot of outside money that comes in to the Democrats in these races, these local elections. They do a lot of their fundraising from the outside. That can't be lost in this as well. So you got to learn to play the game. Can't complain about it. Just got to learn to play it the right way and keep playing it the right way and hope that things improve. Coming up, I will give you 3 winners and 3 losers from last night as we approach the 7 o'clock hour. Pete Mundo on 95.7 FM KCMO. So as Democrats continue to win elections, Republicans are going for clicks and social media shares. That's what's happening on a post-election Wednesday morning. Welcome in on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I thought this was a great example yesterday of how you will see this story shared. It will get millions of views. And a lot of people will applaud this, they will cheer it on, and they will celebrate it. Yet this is exactly why Republicans keep losing. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican House member, as you probably know, from the state of Georgia, introduced a bill that would cut Transportation Secretary Sweet Pete Buttigieg's salary to just $1. Now, let me be clear. That's $1 more than Pete Buttigieg is worth. The guy has no business running the Department of Transportation. He literally said that his background with trains and transportation in general is that he used to enjoy riding trains when he was a younger man with his now husband. That's his experience. He has no business holding this job. Of course, he has the position because of, his rise in 2020. He did well in the primaries. He backed out. He got behind Joe, and this was the thank you. He's the transportation secretary as the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. It's a joke. And, of course, transportation in this country right now is awful, and he's done a bad job. That being said, the fact that we are wasting a second of our time having bills proposed on the House floor by Marjorie Taylor Greene, who goes on a 5-minute rant about how Mayor Pete is a bad transportation secretary and how his salary should be reduced to $1. This is part of the reason that you just keep losing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My amendment uses the Holman Rule to reduce the salary of Secretary Pete Buttigieg to $1. Pete Buttigieg has failed to serve the American people as the Secretary of Transportation. He has been busy calling roads racist, enforcing equity action plans, and implementing climate change initiatives, rather than strengthening our nation's transportation and infrastructure systems and responding to emergencies like the train derailment in East Palestine. He stated, "There is racism physically built into some of our highways. Every transportation decision is inherently, in many ways, a decision about equity." I would argue people driving on dirt roads every single day in rural America may feel that way. But our Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, doesn't care about Americans in rural America. He's more interested in declaring that roads are built on skin color and racism.
Now, everything Marjorie Taylor Greene said there, I agree with. And once again, if I could reduce it to 50 cents, that'd still be 50 cents too much. But this is an enormous waste of time. Why? Because it's never going to happen. Obviously, Democrats in the Senate are never going to vote to reduce Mayor Pete's salary to $1. I want to sit here and have fun with it and like it, and I do. I appreciate the sentiments. But it's such a waste of time because it doesn't accomplish anything. Outside of making people say, "Oh, my goodness, this is great. Look at this. Try to get Mayor Pete down to $1. You know what the best way to go about doing this is? You know what the greatest way to get rid of somebody like Mayor Pete as transportation secretary is? Win elections, notably in 2024. And Marjorie Taylor Greene would be better off going door to door around her district in rural Georgia, making sure people get out to vote in 2024 in her swing state of Georgia, than she would be spending 5 minutes on the House floor trying to get Mayor Pete's salary down to $1, which does nothing but get social media clicks. It accomplishes zero. because there's no chance of it actually ever happening. So that's how we get to this point today where, we're looking at some of these elections around the country, and Democrats had a great night. It is indisputable. They had a very good night on issues like abortion in Ohio, where, by the way, it's a red state that voted overwhelmingly to make abortion part of its state constitution. Whether it's in places like Kentucky, where the incumbent Democrat, who has, yes, a family history there, his father was governor, but still an incumbent Democrat ends up winning his race for re-election. You had a Democrat have a very close race in the Mississippi governor's race as well, of all places. And then, of course, here locally, you have Johnson County that overwhelmingly does very well on behalf of the Democratic Party here. In many of the local races, city council, mayor's races, school board races, they did great. You can't deny any of that. And you sit here and you say, okay, for the last 4 or 5 years of election cycles, whether it's locally or some of the national stuff, Republicans have gotten their clocks cleaned. They've lost. So at what point do you go back to the drawing board and say, what are we doing wrong, and how do we change the direction? And too many are still going to be screaming about, election this, machines this, fraud that. I mean, trust me, I've already got some texts about that. And it's all nonsense. It's like having a little kid who doesn't want to own up to what they screwed up and what they did wrong, and they want to blame their sibling, who, by the way, wasn't even in the room. It's making up excuses is what it is. And whether it's some of that, whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene spending 5 minutes on the House floor talking about reducing Mayor Pete's salary to $1, which is, all well and good, and I appreciate the sentiments, but is going absolutely nowhere in terms of ever becoming law. It's totally taking your eye off the ball is what it is. And not living in the reality of the moment. And finding all these different red herrings and excuses and reasons that, it's not going your way. And how many election cycles in a row do you have to see it before you realize, hey, maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board here a little bit? Just maybe. 913-408-7957. That is the studio line and, of course, the text line here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and, of course, also on your AM dial at 710 and the KCMO Talk Radio app. Don't forget about that. Pete, maybe you should be the GOP director instead of Ronna McDaniel. No. I'm not offering myself up here. All right, I'm enjoying this too much. That's a thankless job. I just know that, if you're a loser, then you can't keep doing the job, right? If you're overseeing loss after loss after loss, you can't keep doing the job. And that's what you're seeing at the federal level with Ronna McDaniel, who's been the GOP chair for what? I want to say it's like 5 years, maybe longer. I mean, how many losses can she oversee before people are like, yeah, it's probably time to go in another direction here. It's probably time to try something else. But I guess for some, they'd rather lose and then claim victim status, which is becoming very popular, sad to say, in Republican circles. Lose, claim you're the victim, move on to the next one. Lose, claim you're the victim, move on to the next one. Rinse and repeat. Coming up on KCMO, there is a fascinating tax issue that I want to get to with our next guest. And I'm going to get this name right. Veronique de Rugy. I think I got that right. I'm going to ask John to confirm that, though, with her before we put her on the air here on KCMO. But it's about an issue when it comes to taxes, specifically local taxes, and how this is going to influence what Congress could be doing over the next year plus. And it actually could impact their negotiations here on the spending bill that they've got to figure out in the next few weeks. So she'll join us. We'll hear from some of the winners. Lori Sharp in Prairie Village will be here in the 8 o'clock hour. All part of a busy post-election Wednesday morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. It's sad to say the anti-Semitism is rampant, whether it's in Washington, D.C., whether it's at KU, where something happened here we'll tell you about coming up. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. Thanks for being here on 95.7 FM and streaming us at kcmotalkradio.com. So yesterday in the House of Representatives, before we get to what happened at KU, the House censured Democrat Rashida Tlaib over her anti-Israel remarks. And it was done on a bipartisan basis, by the way. It passed 234 to 188, 4 voting present. And it centered on statements that Tlaib made after Hamas attacked Israel. And Israel, of course, retaliated with strikes on Gaza. The resolution accused her of promoting false narratives and alleged she called for the destruction of Israel. Some said Tlaib's from the river to the sea, pro-Palestinian comments, parroted language of anti-Israel groups. And she also repeated the now discredited allegation of Israel's culpability for a strike at a Gaza hospital. She pushed that, what is now known to be a lie. The vote was largely along party lines, but 22 Democrats did join the Republicans in censuring Rashida Tlaib. Now, all that being said, there was someone locally here who came to Rashida Tlaib's defense, and it was Cori Bush. She is the gift that keeps on giving, man. That's what she is. Cori Bush over in St. Louis, a squad wannabe member, got up on the House floor yesterday and just went on one of the most unhinged rants I've ever heard on the House floor as she defended Rashida Tlaib promoting lies about Israel. Here we go.
Of a lack of care and a lack of understanding and a lack of seeing the humanity of folks who look like Rashida Tlaib. It's outrageous that my colleagues are blatantly attempting to silence the only Palestinian American representative right here. It's outrageous, but it's not surprising. And let me tell you, it's not surprising because this place is where 1,700 members of Congress, this elected body, enslaved black people. It's not surprising because they thought it was right. It's not surprising because this is a place where members continue to claim that the insurrection on the Capitol just appeared to look like a normal tourist visit. It's not surprising because this is the place where our black and brown staff members repeatedly speak of experiencing racism and sexism, Islamophobia, get pushed off at elevators, xenophobia, and more right here in this workplace. This is the place. And let me say this. She mourns for the 1,400 Israelis.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
She mourns for the 10,000, and she will not stop. No
gentlelady's time has expired.
Ceasefire now, and she takes the death threats that you all sent. That they.
The gentlelady is no longer recognized. The gentleman from Maryland.
To her, the desire to save lives is greater.
Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
That's what I said.
We'll reserve.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
What was that? Cori Bush, St. Louis, House floor yesterday, defending Rashida Tlaib. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Any parking lot in Grandview.
Here is, by the way, that was about 1:20. I've got Cori Bush whittled down to about 8 seconds here for you.
Black people, the insurrection, racism.
There you go. That's the 8-second version. All right. That's the Cliff Notes version of Rashida Tlaib.
Right. Gather yourself. Oh, God. If you got something to say it. Take your time.
Black people, the insurrection, racism.
Oh, God.
Well, it's kind of like when they have the floor mic'd in the NCAA basketball tournament. You hear all the squeaking tennis shoes.
Yes. That's exactly what it sounds like. Although, it's like those 1 versus 16 games where no one's in the stands, so you can really hear the squeaking, you know? You really get the... Oh, my goodness. What was that? Now, of course, it's always about race with someone like Cori Bush. She's like, they're silencing her because she's Palestinian. No, they're silencing her because she is a liar promoting dangerous propaganda. And on top of that, of course, I love how she it's always about slavery and racism with her. And she goes, these are the people who enslaved black people. She's pointing at Republicans. It's like, nah, you gotta, I know history's not your thing, Corey, but you really got to look actually at your side of the house when you talk about slavery and who was promoting it and trying to keep it. Let's not forget that, okay? I know history's kind of tough for you, but let's get our facts straight here in between,
Black people, the insurrection, racism.
Okay. So that was... Oh, gosh. That is just so perfect.
I think that is distilled down to the essence.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, why play a minute 20 when you can play 7.5 seconds, It's all about trying to save you time as well here on the show. Now, meantime, in Kansas, you've got this back here in Lawrence. Lawrence police are investigating after an Israel flag was cut down from the Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity at KU on Sunday night. Police told Channel 9 KMBC they responded to the 1100 block of Indiana. A police spokesperson said in an email the Israeli flag had been cut down and ripped up and later found about a block away. The fraternity's American flag was still attached to the rope and on the ground near the flagpole. Police are forwarding the report to the department's investigations division, saying the department is concerned about the nature of the crime. According to the fraternity website, Alpha Epsilon Pi, it was founded to provide opportunities for Jewish college men seeking the best possible college and fraternity experience. Now, of course, we'll always wait and see with any story on what exactly happened. But something tells me this is not like Jussie Smollett. Some may call him Juicy Smollett. He was the guy, the D-list actor in Chicago. What was that, 3 years ago now? It was pre-COVID. I remember that much. It might have been, 4.5, 5 years ago now. Who claimed that at 2 a.m. in the middle of January in Chicago when it was like 0 degrees, that he was attacked by two guys in a MAGA hat. And it turned out he staged the whole thing. Remember that? He was walking out of a Subway, like a Subway sandwich shop at midnight. And two guys in these red MAGA hats approached him and beat him up and said, "This is MAGA country," in Chicago at midnight when it was 2 degrees outside. And it turned out he faked the whole thing. I don't think that, of course, Jewish KU students would be faking this kind of crime. Can't put it past anybody, but something tells me this is not going to be Jussie Smollett 2.0. This is going to be anti-Semitism, another example of it, being rampant on college campuses, including at KU. So we're going to do more investigating into this because something tells me local media is going to bury this thing real fast because, that's what they're going to do. So we followed up with folks in the know, some of the people who help run the university, and see what we can gather out of this. And frankly, they should be speaking out vehemently against this kind of activity. Because you and I both know if it was any other group, oh my goodness, you'd have presidents, chancellors, everybody commenting right out of the gates. So we'll see how KU plays it.